truly are we seeing a new world order take place? Even with conservatives, Democrats, liberals, Republicans, it doesn't matter what letter they have behind their name. I think there are some stories today that will prove that something big is happening and we need to pay attention. We're going to talk about what Germany just came out and said about AI. And the person who made AI, the one who actually formed it, is stating about how, we really do need universal basic income, because without it, we'll see major depressions. AI will take over. Also, we're going to talk about what property tax is doing to Americans. Interest rate, property tax, and the fact of inflation. This New World Order really shows that we just can't buy a house anymore. Gen Z and even millennials both are just saying there's no purpose in owning a home now. Let's just rent, because property tax is way too much and we don't see the benefit of it. Interest and the cost of goods is way too much. We can't just own a home. And again, there's stories and media pushing it. So therefore now we see money and how we work is changing. We see that, oh wow, there's no point in owning a house anymore because of taxes and the cost of it, so let's just rent. Isn't that just what the globalists were pushing? Now let's talk about some other things that deal with America. Beef. Beef is getting too expensive. There's a farmer that was just interviewed saying, we're missing the point. We're worried about China tariffs. China owns most of our food. Think of pork and beef. Well, a farmer just came out and stated the obvious. How we're pushing away from food too. Healthy, good quality food. Are we truly looking at the New World Order? And it's literally happening, no matter if there's a RD behind the name. Think about this here. Look at this military buildup. You know where that military buildup is? Well, in the pro things, it's kind of like the Real ID yesterday. I got so much kickback and blowback. They're like, it's already on our licensures. See, what happens is they slowly implement these things, and we just take them hook, line, and sinker. For instance, that military buildup, we're like, that's good. It's protecting our border. We deployed a ton of troops to the border. That is good. However, if all we can do is say on public lands we're able to just open a wide array of military to go in and house it, remember there's a lot of public lands in America, especially in these states. If we see any administration, conservative or Democrat, just be able to house people in public lands, take over public lands, almost like eminent domain, what are we doing? And then lastly, let's talk about the governor of Pennsylvania. This is happening more and more. We talked about the epic city in Texas. You're never going to believe what the Pennsylvania governor just did. Now, I don't get handouts. For some reason, I'm missing the boat. I can't understand how government are just handing out millions of dollars to all these people, and somehow I'm just not in that line. We're going to talk about what he just did and how it affects America. Because slowly and surely you're starting to see what we talked about the other day about how one religion seems like it's taking over America. It may be happening because the government's paying for it. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so very much for being here. Today we have a lot to talk about. We're going to try to jump in as quick as possible, hit these headlines. Remember, we are doing lives about every other day. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time, even though we're still putting a video out, some of the topics that we can't get to or I can't address in a 20 or 30 minute video, I've been talking about in the lives. Also, what it does, it helps us interact. So questions, comments that you have, I read them. It's a great time to be together. So please, I've been trying to make sure that we can spend some time together doing the lives, not just the video. So please, if you can, like today, we had one earlier today, go back and watch it. It's a great video. But also, we're trying to do more lives so we can interact with you and hopefully let you know how important you are to us. So thank you so much for attending those lives, and we'll keep on doing them through the whole month of April. Also, remember, we have a new video coming out on Life with Kobe Mack today, my wife's channel, The Max Life. Check out those channels because they have great information of sustainability and learning how to raise your own food and just enjoy life together. Now let's jump into the serious things of today. Now let's talk about first what Trump just did with the border. Now, on the aspect of sending all these troops to the border, I'm not upset about that. I think that's a great thing. I think that we need to make sure that we're protecting our border. Here's where I have a problem with it. And this is not because of Trump. This is because if we set precedents, what happens when Trump goes out of power? Who takes this to the next level? For instance, Real ID yesterday that we talked about. Most people are like, oh, it's much of nothing. I mean, we have it on our driver's license already. Okay. Do you realize the preface of Real ID was basically digital ID? The preface to digital ID was digital currency. All it is a national database to put everybody's information in one place. It's another form of surveillance. Now, is Trump or Kristi Noem or this administration using it for bad things? No, but what I'm saying is if we learn to implement things that has been pushed off and we learn to do it because this administration is not going to use it for bad intentions, they're going to use it for good, great. But there may be other players that will use it for bad intentions. So for instance, what we've seen in the past, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, all those things were set up for good, but now we see there's waste, fraud, and abuse going rampant in it, and people are abusing that system. So something was set up for good that can be used for wrong, especially if it helps them win votes or helps them win a certain amount of people. That's what our government does. They abuse certain things that we have given them permission to do. So the reason I want to bring this back up, just like Real ID, on the surface looks like it's a good thing because it protects the people of America. But on the backside, it actually just puts a database where every America is entered. We still have a problem with the fact that people that are coming into the United States are not getting real IDs. I mean, come on, people. This is the same situation. This allowed, and let's just go read the story again, not going against us protecting our border. But what is the precedent we're setting? Trump orders military to seal the southern border as the U.S. accelerates hemispheric defense. Well, on the aspect of protecting our hemisphere and protecting our borders, great. What happens, though, is it took no signs of nationalizing this public area, meaning Trump sent troops in just because. It says that the southern border is under attack, so therefore we nationalized, we put a state of emergency in. We proclaimed that we need to be there through an executive order. So we took public lands that were inhabited by, of course, government owning, and that the states would help protect, that we already had Border Patrol agents that are supposed to be there to do their job. Now, because we considered it a threat, we were able to put troops there because it was public land. Okay. You're still saying, Colby, how's that a bad thing? Look in every state. In every state, there is public land. Government owns way too much land. Actually, they're one of the biggest landowners in America is the government. At any point in time, if the state or federal official says, well, we deem something a threat, we need to activate troops to utilize in these areas. Now, you're like, Colby, that's still not a bad thing because this is not against American people. This is against the Mexican border and drug cartels. True. But what we see is what Trump is doing is good because it's giving so much power to just say, look, we have leadership there. We have state governments there. We have border patrols there, but we deem it a threat, so we're going to add more troops there. The question is, why are we not protecting it? We're paying all these people to protect the border. Why are they not protected? Why do we have to activate the troops? Or say all of a sudden Trump gets out of office and next is Gavin Newsom. What if all of a sudden he said, well, you know, there's some farmers up in Oregon that's trying to run their cattle on public lands, and we're against this cattle thing. I mean, it's climate danger. This is a threat to the lands, the public lands. Let's bring troops in, activate them up there. Let's protect that land. You see, I know you think, well, he's just going down a slippery slope. Well, that's what we do. When government kind of oversteps and we kind of activate extra troops to do this or that, I think we're setting wrong precedents. What does activating troops in America on public lands actually mean? That's a form of martial law, people. So I just want us to be careful of what we see with Real ID, what we see with activating troops on public land in America. I think those things can come back and bite us, not because of what Trump or what Noam is doing, not because of what they're trying to utilize those laws, maybe for good, but what it could possibly do by setting precedents to then see what another administration may do. I just think we need to be very careful of some of this government overreach into our quote-unquote security and threats, because that government overreach into our security and threats is actually taking away from freedom. Which brings me to another point. Talking about the New World Order, that's one, martial law. What about the fact of Gen Z now says there's no importance of buying land. There's no importance of buying homes. We might as well just rent because property tax and taxation in general and inflation is getting to a point where I can't afford it. I can't afford the interest payments. So therefore, what we've done is our congressman and our Senate has spent so much money in America to cause the problems that we're seeing. The waste, fraud, and abuse, the fact of the debt, those things are what actually makes inflation, interest, and the fact of taxation become more utilized. Just think if we balanced a budget, just think if our congressman didn't spend like crazy, if we actually were on sound money, you wouldn't see the overtaxation, you wouldn't see the inflation, and you wouldn't see the higher interest rates, would we? There's a new study that shows that 90% of Gen Zs and the population coming up sees there's no real point in owning a house. Like for instance, there was a person that says, look, we have a property tax bill in Texas. Here we are, we have a 3,500 square foot home, which is a big home, but they were saying we have a 3,500 square foot home, and just to say we own the home, it costs us $14,000. He said, not counting the land that it sits on, not counting the taxes we're already paying. And really, when I look back, I'm like, why are we just renting this home when we have to fix everything on it? And we're renting it from the government because we have to pay them taxes. Why don't we just rent indefinitely? So you're seeing a whole mentality of where people are saying, it's just not that important anymore. Now, that's a whole different change than 50, 60 years ago where it was important to own a home, to have a real asset. So now we hear that we could use military on public lands. We see that money is important, but because the way that our government has spent, they're needing more taxation, more interest, and they've caused more inflation, which means people are seeing the fact of not owning anything anymore. Real tangible assets are not valuable. We'll just rent. You own nothing and be happy. That's exactly what the globalists were pushing. Now we're seeing it even in America. Now let's move right on to the next story. Talk about AI and how important it is and how we need to pay attention to this. AI Pioneer predicts universal basic income will have to happen with AI. Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, has quit Google to warn about AI dangers and predicts the universal basic income is going to have to happen because the more and more AI is used in our life, the more and more the people will be dependent on the government because jobs will be no more. Listen to this. Hinton advised the UK government and parts of the US government on UBI stresses and how we need to make sure that we are increasing the fact of talking about giving money to people because AI will start displacing tons of workers, especially the ones that are vulnerable. He also warned that AI poses extinction-level threats that surpasses human intelligence. Hinton calls for global regulations and control on military AI use, fearing that governments and autonomous systems will be used for the wrong reasons. Again, AI can be used for good things. Could cure cancer, could be utilized to remove tumors, could be things that are inoperable, can be operated on. Things that we don't know about, we can learn and get more innovative with AI. But in the wrong hands, it could be used as a fear tactic to take our jobs and to be used in a military way that could pretty much mean all people will be dependent on whomever owns that power. That's why the push is so hard to get to AI. The race between us and America and China is happening day in and day out. It says his concerns echoed recent resignations by OpenAI employees. It says workers are fearing of what this rapid achievement of AI is going to do. And what we're seeing is people are going to need government handouts to even think about making it because there's going to be a lot of vulnerable people with jobs that will lose their jobs. And we're like, that won't happen. Listen to this. Germany just gives out free money and they still said people went to work. This experiment was to try to see if UBI really worked because it would allow people to be lazy and not go to work. It says it was success. People still didn't want to lay on their couches. They still wanted to work. And the government thought it was a great thing to give the money to them because it gave incentives to spend. So Germany is looking at implementing a UBI anyway. You see how they spun it? They said, well, it does nothing for it. It's just like a stimulus. It gives people a right to go spend their money and enjoy all the work that they're giving. All the things that they do when they feel like they're paycheck to paycheck. If we can give them money, then they feel like they've worked hard for something. So the government now is taking your money through taxation, still making you work, and then turn around and giving you a piece of it back, and you think that that's a gift. That's going to cause inflation. Not only that, they're saying that it works. So UBI could be a good thing. Well, if all of a sudden people start losing their jobs, they're already getting a stipend from the government. What if all of a sudden they say, well, I guess we just got to go up? And I mean, people still want to work, but we need to give them more money because they can't work right now. You're starting to see Europe and talks of Democrats, even in America, talk about UBI and how important it is because people may be vulnerable and they need it. Now, Social Security is not UBI. Social Security is something you worked hard for. But what it was a government version of them making you pay into a retirement system that actually has failed us. It's in debt up to its eyeballs, and it's given too much fraud waste to other people that shouldn't have gotten it. And then on top of that, it's not giving you back the hard-earned money that you worked so hard for. So if we think that Social Security is failing, how do you think that a UBI would actually fail? It would fail way worse because you have more special interests and you have less money to give out. We'd be printing more money, which would cause more inflation, so UBI would be bad. But if AI comes in and takes all our jobs, then we've got to look at UBI. You see? So now, what have we talked about? No home ownership. No value because of taxation. We see that government can actually put military troops just about anywhere they want to on public lands, as long as they say it's for threat and for safety. And then now we're talking about universal basic income because of AI use and dependency on that. And now AI is becoming so rapidly intelligent that we may be dependent on it. And you're starting to see people who worked for AI resign and try to destroy it because the danger and fear that it will cause. Before we talk about the last point with food, let's talk about this government handout thing. You know, we talked about the Epic City. We talked about how we're actually getting consumed within. Listen to what Governor Josh Shapiro just did in Pennsylvania. It says he is literally giving out $5 million of taxpayer money to a new Islamic society in Philly. It's meant to show a camaraderie with the Muslim community. This same place has pushed hate among Israel and also pushed hate among Americans. The article keeps on going. It says, what we actually see is Josh Shapiro, who is a major contender for the Democratic nod in 2028, is supporting making more tolerant views of Islam even in Pennsylvania. And it says even worse, he's funding it with millions of dollars at the expense of national security. $5 million. And see, here's how they spend it. They're considered a 501(c)(3). Also, how they spend it is this is considered freedom of their religion, to practice religion. So now Republicans are embracing this too. So now we're giving taxpayer dollars to someone who hates America. This group of individuals has already been part of a lot of ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and hatred of America and Israel. So what are we doing? I mean, again, we see how bad UBI and your Social Security and all this waste, fraud, and abuse would do. We're literally seeing governments hand out money to people who have already preached against America's views. So we believe giving them the opportunity to give us more money is a good thing. We believe it's the opportunity of them being over our tax dollars and them utilizing them well is a good thing. No, they're not utilizing them well. And that's a prime example of it. Now let's talk about the last story because this is the one that kind of ties it all in, our food system. This report says American cattle ranchers are exposing the fact that they've been sold out. They are at a risk of being run out of business because the meat that they're competing against is imported. It says 4 large mega corporations now own 85% of the entire beef industry and meat industry in America. 2 of them are foreign owned. 1 of them is Chinese owned. So you have 1 American company that owns American beef. You have 2 foreign owned, a Brazilian tied, and then a few other foreign agencies, and then 1 is owned by Chinese. It says 50% of our beef in the processing is controlled by outside sources, not in the U.S. It comes down to our food source security. We talked about this with pharmaceuticals yesterday. We used to make a fair amount of return on our cattle, but the industry has changed dramatically, and I told you this because the fact of the cattle pricing is actually pricing. It seems like helping the farmer. What it's doing is farmers are so broke, they're going and selling a lot of their heifers and a lot of their steers, and they're saying, we're making a lot of money and we'll buy back. Well, the cattle market keeps on getting so priced out that the farmer can't even buy stock again. They can't even replace their stock again. And then only people who can is the ultra-rich, big industries that have now taken over the cattle industry. It says 4 companies, giant companies, got together and decided to roll up, consolidate, and now run the business and own the majority shares in all our beef and meat. But when we get on the other side of it, take into account that the ramifications of national economic health It is very detrimental because they set policies on what these cows eat, where they're raised, how they're raised, and they're too big that the government lobbying is so strong that no one will stand against them. It says our government has allowed for 2 giant companies to be controlled by foreign governments. You know, you hear about the Chinese farmland, you hear about the Chinese ports. 85% of our beef is with 4 providers. 25% of that is American company that has American beef. The other 3 of that, so 75% of majority of our food grown in America, not even by American providers and American companies that are over our food system. We have allowed other countries to do that. Now again, I blame the Congress and Senate because guess what? They probably were paid pretty big money to back a bill to allow this to take place. A farmer interviewed says one of these are controlled by the Chinese, and they bought Smithfield out of North Carolina. And again, the others are Brazilian companies. So now we have an industry that is not controlled by anyone who actually lives here, but a very minute piece. Do you think they care about the American farmer? Do you think they care about the American meat? Or do you think that they're going to utilize that to maybe get what they want in America? It says no one's talking about the situation with this, but until we get help for the American farmer will cease to exist, and the American farmer will not be. And all it will be is tied to manufacturing, extreme oligarchs, or billion-dollar companies that are not even owned by American businessmen. Why do we not have a co-op or a farmer's situation to where regulation will be cut and that the American farmer can get back to work in raising its own food? No. We've allowed for heavy regulation, heavy taxation to be on the American farmer where they can't afford it. They're priced out, they're taxed, they lose their land because of tax, and then all of a sudden the only people left standing is the big businesses that are not even American owned. Okay, so let's wrap this whole video up. Militarization of public lands. It's not a bad thing right now under Trump, but it can be utilized to be a very bad thing under another leader. Universal basic income. The fact that AI will take jobs, so we need to make sure that we're giving money from the government. The government needs to be over that. So that means overtaxation, that means more money pouring into a system kind of like Social Security that will ultimately give you money to stay at home and not work. There's no point in owning land or property because the property tax and the interest is too high. So the new generations, 90% of Gen Z says that it may not be important to buy a house anymore. Let's just rent. You own nothing and be happy. We talked about the fact that our government money has been given to people who don't even like us. So our taxation on us and then given away to people who do not like us. Is that going to benefit us in the long run? And then lastly, our food system is now owned by someone that's not even in America. We're selling our farmlands, we're selling our ports, but not only that, now we're getting rid of the farmer. These things are a big deal. Push that with Real ID yesterday and the fact that we can't even provide our own medical pharmaceuticals for more than 2 weeks. We're looking at a new world order. And it does not matter if there's a D, R, conservative, liberal, leftist, whatever you want to call, whoever's in charge. What we've been done, what's happened to us is we've been sold out. And now we're seeing a new world order. Give me your thoughts on today's video. I don't mean to discourage you. I mean to encourage you. You know how you stop doing that? You raise food. You start raising food. You know how you can afford that? You get on a budget and quit spending money that you don't have. You know how you solve that? You work together with your community and you build co-ops yourself. You help buy land together. You help barter goods together. You start buying assets together. You start realizing the value of land and tangible assets once again. Don't be pushed on the fact that digital currency is a good thing. Crypto is a good thing. It's not. We need to be able to tangibly hold our commodities, our food, and our money. Guys, let me know your thoughts on today's video. Remember, check out the other channels. Remember, we're doing a live every other day. Check that out so we can talk about some of these issues. God bless.